Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Well, we talked about one of the best teams in recent MLB history to miss the playoffs in the last video, so it's only natural that we do the exact opposite in this video. Longtime viewers of the channel probably saw this one coming from a mile away. While there were tons of examples of great teams to miss the playoffs in baseball, there's actually not nearly as many bad teams that snuck in. The most famous of the bunch are the 2006 world champion St. Louis Cardinals. However, I've always found their record a little bit misleading, being that St. Louis was as good as 80-69 in September, before a 7-game losing streak nearly knocked them out of contention. Instead, let's take a look at a division winner that was so tremendously underwhelming that finding any footage of them was the hardest part of putting this entire video together. That team would be the 2005 San Diego Padres. I do feel bad in advance that we're bullying the Padres a bit in this video, being that they just had a very tough end to their 2021 season. But the fact remains that their 2005 squad was the closest MLB has ever come in their history to having a losing team make the postseason. And no, I don't count 2020 in that statement because over half of the entire league made the playoffs. So let's turn the clock back. Expectations were somewhat high in San Diego after an 87-75 finish in 2004. This only got them third place in the West that year, but it was their first winning season since 1998 when they won the National League pennant. However, with their only offseason addition being Mark Sweeney, many expected regression from the Padres, and regress they did. It's just that all of their rivals regressed as well, and much harder than they did. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so we're obviously going to talk a lot about how this Padres team was underwhelming in a lot of facets, so before we get to all of that, let's talk about the bright spots on this team that helped to carry them to a winning season. An advantage they held over other teams was their closer, Trevor Hoffman. He had been their closer for the past decade at this point, and he twirled another fantastic season in 2005, locking down 43 saves with a 2.97 ERA and also winning National League Pitcher of the Month honors in May of that year. A year after leading all of MLB with a 2.27 ERA, Jake Peavy was looked at as one of the most fearsome aces in the National League. He lived up to that bill for the Padres in 2005, posting a 2.88 ERA and leading the NL in strikeouts with his first season of over 200 Ks. And as always, they were under the guide of manager Bruce Bochy, under immense pressure to lead the Padres back to the playoffs. He was the skipper for the Padres for a decade at that point, and with just 2 playoff berths under his belt, his seat was certainly getting hot. So they had 3 pillars of their franchise here, but would that be enough to carry them to a playoff berth? Let's take a look at their schedule. It was an unceremonious kickoff to the season on opening day, with an epic Padres comeback being choked away in the 9th inning at Coors Field. This game ended up being a 12-10 walk-off loss to the Rockies, and crazily enough, Trevor Hoffman would blow 2 saves in April and then proceed to not blow another save until August. The 2005 Padres got off to a sluggish start that season with an 11-13 record in April, made more concerning by the fact that 9 of those losses came against division rivals. But with only 3 series against NOS teams in May, the Padres began to flourish. They rattled off 3 separate winning streaks of 6 games or more in this month to improve to a 33-19 record by month's end. They had 9 one-run victories in May of 2005, by far the most of any team. And of those 9 one-run wins, 7 of them were comeback victories. The Padres had a 120 weighted runs created plus in May, second in MLB, and producing a large chunk of those runs was Brian Giles, the most dependable hitter in San Diego's lineup and arguably the most underrated hitter of the 2000s. He OPS'd above 1.1 with 18 extra base hits in May. Another big factor in their great month was the Padres bullpen, who ranked 6th in MLB with a 3.49 ERA in 2005. They of course were led by Trevor Hoffman, who, as we mentioned before, won Pitcher of the Month honors in May. He had 12 saves, a 0.82 ERA, and a 0.64 WHIP. So they were comeback kids scoring decent amount of runs and locking down games late with their reliable bullpen. Jake Peavy was also the stopper for the Padres and much needed in that role. The Padres won 9 of his first 10 starts between April and May, but there wasn't much security behind him in the rotation. The combined ERA of the starters behind Peavy was abysmal, and this wasn't an early season theme. This would go on for the entire year. Brian Lawrence, Adam Eaton, Tim Stauffer, and the rest of the non-Peavy Padres starters combined for a 4.93 ERA, which would have been 5th worst in MLB if Peavy wasn't around. His presence alone lifted them to 15th in the league. This just goes to show how reliant the Padres were on their stars and how top-heavy their roster could be. The Padres ended May with a 3-game division lead, but they'd soon enter a tailspin in the summer. They immediately lost 6 of their first 7 June games, and by month's end, 14 games over 500 turned into just 7 games over 500. After having the second best weighted runs created plus in MLB in May, they plummeted to 28th in June with an 87 weighted runs created plus. A 10-17 June was anything but ideal, but the Padres still closed the first half as a winning team atop the NL West. Then, July came around. It started well enough with a 7-6 start to the month, but on their trips to the NL East and Central, they got exposed badly. A monstrous 8-game losing streak made them a 50-50 team, and a sweep at the hands of the Reds landed them at 51-54 to end July. An 8-18 month with sweeps at the hands of the Mets, Phillies, and Reds is as bad as it gets, and they outdid their poor June weighted runs created plus with an even worse July, regressing from 87 to 84. Still, the 51-54 Padres were atop the NL West. But they knew their offense was a problem, and it had been for the entire season, with many of their struggles stemming from regressing players. Phil Nevin saw his 2004 OPS plus of 130 plummet to 78. 2004 All-Star Mark Loretta saw his OPS plus go from 138 to 95. And after finishing second in National League Rookie of the Year voting the year before, Khalil Green's OPS plus dipped from 114 to 96. Every guy that was relied upon in the Padres infield basically just didn't show up in 2005. Conversely, it was the Padres bench that was stepping up in their absence. Their key free agent that we mentioned before, Mark Sweeney, posted a career-best 135 OPS plus as a platoon option. David Ross, Miguel Olivo, and Ramon Hernandez formed a reliable catching trio with a collective OPS plus of 114. Damian Jackson led the club with 15 stolen bases off the bench. 38-year-old Eric Young Sr. posted his first OPS plus above 100 since 1998. The Padres had serious weapons off the bench, so it was a matter of Bruce Bochy utilizing them to full effectiveness to keep his Padres atop the mediocre West. So, if you haven't noticed already, the 2005 Padres were an incredibly streaky team, with insane peaks and valleys, and with overperforming players and vastly underperforming players. And of course, this meant an unlikely rebound following their most disastrous month yet. August kicked off with the Padres winning 5 of 6 games, then losing 6 of 8 games, then winning 2 straight, losing 2 straight, winning 2 more straight, and then losing 2 more straight. It seemed as though every time this team found a rhythm, that momentum would disintegrate almost immediately. A strong finish to the month landed them at a 15-12 August record, just good enough for a 500 overall record at 66-66. And still, somehow, they sat atop the NL West, this time with a 5.5 game lead. For reference, the 69-63 Mets in the NL East were 4th place, also 5.5 games out of 1st place. And usually this would be the part in the story where I tell you that the struggling, underperforming team banded together to defy expectations and shock the baseball world. And that's just not the case with the 2005 Padres. They kind of just floated on by in September. They went 11-11 in their first 22 September games before a 3-game skid landed them at 77-79. 2 games under, but still in 1st place, only with a 3-game lead over San Francisco. This had been their smallest division lead in months with just a couple weeks left in the season. We had a legitimate shot at a sub-500 division winner with the skidding Padres facing the 2nd place Giants in a 4-game set, a set that would basically decide who won the West. But alas, the Padres got their shit together just enough, winning 3 straight and 5 of 6 total to close out the season 82-80. They clinched with a 9-1 victory over the Giants, making them the first MLB team to clinch a postseason berth while at a 500 record. Their record was 79-79. It would have been a true disgrace to the game if the Padres somehow made a deep playoff run with this lackluster roster, but this thankfully was not the case. In the 2005 National League Division Series, the Padres never held a lead in any of the games against the Cardinals. Their most dependable starter and ace, Jake Peavy, was shelled for 4 runs in 3 innings in Game 1, and St. Louis would go on to score 21 runs in 3 games, beating the Padres by 3 or more runs in their NLDS sweep. That reliable Padres bullpen went to the wayside, and the worst division winner in MLB history had an exit as unceremonious as the entirety of their winning season. As far as my searching goes, the Padres are the only MLB team in history to crack the playoffs with a losing Pythagorean record. For those who don't know, this stat is reliant on run differential, a flawed stat that can be skewed in blowout games, so bear that in mind. But their Pythagorean record was 77-85, but the rest of the division was much, much worse. Not only were there no other 500 400 teams in the NL West, no one even got to 78 wins. I truly believe we'll never see a division of this poor quality in MLB ever again, because the entire concept of it isn't feasible. Maybe tanking peaks at some point and becomes a problem that infects half the league, but I'm hoping it never comes to that. And I hope nobody takes this video as me ragging on the Padres, because the current day Padres are young, exciting, and full of potential. I just hope that if they make the cut in the playoffs at some point in the future, it's with more than 82 wins. And I'm sure the Los Angeles Dodgers would never let an NL West team as lackluster as the 05 Padres do something like this again. Besides, who really wants to see a team barely sneak into the postseason and then make a deep run? I'd take two 100-win teams facing off against each other any day of the week. But anyways, that'll do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for all future notifications. Today's video was brought to you by Manscaped, and if you don't know already, they have an amazing line of grooming products over at their website. Their premier product right now is the Lawnmower 4.0, which is at the forefront of electric shavers. It has a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. Not to mention a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction off and on switch, a travel lock, a 4000K LED spotlight, and it's waterproof. The Lawnmower 4.0 is actually part of the Performance Package 4.0, which is a box full of amazing products that Manscaped has to offer. It also includes the Weed Whacker, which is made for trimming pesky hairs, not to mention their various deodorants for your nether regions, and 2 free gifts with their Shed Travel Bag and anti-chafing boxer briefs. If you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you know of these offers already and you know how to get them, but if you haven't heard already, you can use my promo code OLIVE for 20% off and free shipping off anything on their website. I highly recommend taking a look at the Performance Package 4.0, and make sure you remember to use my promo code OLIVE for that nice deal. Thanks for watching today's video.